All right, we are at AMC Veterans 20 today, watching Inside 2 by Bo Burnham. Oh no, we are watching Inside Out 2 by Pixar today. Welcome back to Movie Health Community, the internet's #1 source of health warnings at the movies. But before we talk about whether Inside Out 2 is any good or not, let's talk about if it's safe for photosensitive audiences. The answer is cautiously no. Inside Out 2 is not quite safe for photosensitive audiences. The biggest offender in this movie is a series of threads that are built up, and when these threads are interacted with, they flash and create a bit of a strobe effect. We're introduced to these threads pretty early, but these strobe effects don't happen until a new character starts interacting with them. There's one action scene that has some lightning in the background. There's an early scene of people taking selfies. There are some camera flashes in that scene, just single camera flashes. There's a late sequence of a swirling vortex that may create some strobe effects with rapid movement. So for flashing lights, we are giving Inside Out 2 a 6 out of 10. In terms of mental health, there's one really big warning I have to give for this movie, and that is that there is a very intense and visceral anxiety attack depicted in one extended sequence of this movie. Now, is Inside Out 2 any good? The first Inside Out may very well be a perfect movie. There are not a lot of movies I would say that about, but Inside Out is definitely one of them. Easily one of the best that Pixar has ever made. It deals with topics that are so complex that you have to applaud the courage of the filmmakers for attacking such complex topics. This movie had a lot riding on it, and earlier this week I lost a lot of faith when I saw that it didn't have one of Pixar's top name directors directing it the way the first Inside Out did, and that 2 of the 5 emotions had their actors replaced due to pay disparity. All this to say, this movie started to have all the highlights of a cheap cash grab, that they just threw a project together to make some money. That's what it felt like when I started learning all of this information. I am so happy at how wrong I was about that. This movie stands up right alongside the original Inside Out in every way. Inside Out left us with a really great hook for a sequel, and this is definitely a case where the 9 years we've waited since that original for that hook of a sequel to take shape, it was worth the 9 years of waiting. They put together such a great image of how the topic of mental health and emotions gets more complex as you grow older. Do you need the foundation of the original Inside Out to enjoy this movie? Probably, yeah. This movie continues on a lot of the groundwork that the original Inside Out built. And just like the original Inside Out, this movie introduces us to new and shockingly healthy ways to process certain emotions. I rewatched the original Inside Out for the first time in a few years earlier this week, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I cried like a baby. And this movie definitely got me choked up a couple of times, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does the same for me in the future. On a technical level, everything looks beautiful. Everything looked just as good as it did in the first movie, and that was already pretty good to begin with. But one thing that actually stood out to me over the previous Inside Out was the sound design, especially in the scenes depicting hockey action. The sound design just really seemed like it went the extra mile to make us feel like we were right there, that this was really happening, that this is in fact the real world that is being driven by the visualization that we're seeing of the inner world. This movie also had one moment that I kind of wish the first Inside Out did have, which was a moment of joy. Our main character, there's a scene where she gets to drive everything and it fails miserably. That's the one thing I wish we had gotten a moment of in the original Inside Out. We actually did get a moment of in this sequel. Inside Out 2 could have messed up in a lot of ways. It could have gotten too complex with everything new it was introducing as we entered this new stage of life. it seemed to walk a perfect balance of how complex it wanted to be. It could have been too simple. It was not. It could have had pure villains that only have terrible desires. This movie did not have that. This movie approached these topics with every bit the nuance we should hope to expect after seeing the first Inside Out movie. I really don't have any complaints about this movie besides the fact that some of the flashing light effects are a little photosensitivity inaccessible. Yeah, that's my only complaint, and from a critical standpoint, I'm not going to let that stand in the way. I'm sorry, but I got to give this movie an A+. Is it my favorite movie of this year? Probably not, but it is deserving of an A+ grade in how shocking of a surprise it is that it turned out as good as it did, and how good of a companion piece to the original it is. Thank you so much to our readers on Tumblr and Facebook, and as always, an extra special thanks to our patrons over on our Patreon page, whose names are scrolling on the screen like credits right now. As a reminder, nothing produced by Movie Health Community is medical advice, nor has any of it ever been reviewed by any medical professionals. Be sure to leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when we post new videos, and leave a comment if you have anything to add to this discourse, especially if you disagree with anything I've said. We love hearing from you. And as always, stay safe at the movies.